Well, welcome to this 20th bar 4 meeting of ours. 20th meeting since we began doing these kind of interactions, and well, a lot has emerged lately. Probably, I'm not sure, for you guys, maybe overwhelmingly a lot of we could say of content. And my intention here is to try put these pieces together, try and do a synthesis of all this that has been, shared, because, well, the natural way that it's been shared is kind of in an organic way, meaning that it comes in pieces. So what I'm going to try to do is organize it in a whenever you do a synthesis, you're going to tend to do an organize all this, and it's a bit of a challenge because it's a lot. It's a lot. Basically, what I'm going to be focusing on, and the other subjects, I'm going to connect it to a central heart, which is going to be this the matrix of the psyche. The word I'm going to be using when I say matrix is it's a matrix with a Z at the end, not an X. Okay, a matriz. So the matrix of the psyche, or the matriz of the psyche, is basically what I want to be looking into. Okay, because this is kind of like the key element that is kind of came into play, but to be able to see it, which of course it has a lot of depth, it is something that comes from the things that we've been seeing previously in these last 7 years. So it's kind of like a fruit out of a very long process, and a lot of different things are gonna come together, and I'm gonna try organize this in the best way possible. Yeah. Let's begin. Look, because I knew that there's so much, I decided to organize it. Let me open this. I kind of already did a Spanish, did this talk in Spanish, so I know I can do it. And I'm going to organize it in a in basically a very similar way. Can you see that, guys? Can you see it says the matriz of the psyche. Okay, matriz in Spanish basically means like a matrix, but what is a matrix? Because I think probably we're going to link it a bit with the movie, and probably it's not the best association to do. It's just a way, it's a condition of how a space is organized. Yeah. It's also another word that we can relate with matriz is a uterus. A uterus. It's a space which has certain conditions to receive something. Okay. So it's kind of like the logic of a structure. It's the logic of those conditions. So I've decided to kind of organize this talk in 3 different sections. Yeah. Because I think the best way of really understanding this, because if we look into the actual structure of it, there's a lot of details, okay? And the thing is that if you don't have the base notions, what happens with those details is that you get lost into the details and you can't really see it from an integral point of view. It's like you just kind of I think that's, you can get lost in that, like, the N, the Z, the sum, that, yeah, but what, like, the first thing, what are we talking about when we're talking about psyche in this context, so this base notions that I think are essential to really grasp and understand what is this that has emerged, okay? What I'm going to try to do is just provide a minimum, we could say a minimum definition of these notions, but it's not really, the intention not is to close these notions into these definitions, but just to give a reference point, a stepping stone, not to stay on that stone, but to jump from that stone. But if we don't have a minimum notion of what the different main concepts are, we're going to just I think we're going to get lost in, we're not really going to be digging what we're aiming for, what we're talking about. Then the second one is the path of construction towards a new matrix of the psyche. Yeah, as you can see, I put Z in all of them to do the reference to the Spanish word. Okay, and then the third is to look specifically at the structure of this matriz that has emerged with the development of the logic. So as I said, it's going to be quite a lot. It's going to be quite a lot that I'm going to be sharing today. I'm going to try and do it in the most synthetic way, not to give too much, because not to overwhelm, because this is something that I think it's touching all of us at this moment. It's something that it's a reality in display. What I'm going to try and do is just give a more clear notion of what is in display, what is developing here. Yeah. So I'm not sure how you guys. Do you guys just see? Do you guys see me and the image, or you just see the image? You see the both? Okay.
Yeah, we see both.
Oh, excellent. Okay, excellent. Okay, guys. So let's get into the matter. Let's go to the second page. Okay, let's start with these base notions. Yeah. Space-time structures, calendars, souls, genetic projections, biological unconscious. Yeah. Just another question. Do you see me very small, like too small? Or I like for the words to be there, because the word says a lot. It gives you a reference on what I'm touching, but also I'm not sure if it's a bit too small.
No, the image is big. It's the biggest image is the words, and you're small.
Okay, well, let's just kind of manage it both ways, okay? I'll go from the image to myself So let's start with space-time structures. Okay, what are we talking about when we referencing to space-time structures, yeah? So space-time structures basically is referring to, also Ale kind of calls the space-time structures as the soul of reality, It's talking about the order and the relationships, what we call the legitimate organisms of reality. Now, what is these legitimate organisms? What are these legitimate souls, we could say? Now, these are going to be relationships between celestial bodies, what we call celestial bodies. Meaning, what is a kind of like a legitimate organism within the reality of space and time? What we call globes, what we call celestial bodies. And why is this so important? Why do we have to make a differentiation here? Mainly between these celestial bodies and the souls that are inhabiting these celestial bodies. Because they are in dialogue, but they belong to different ranges of, let's say, of consciousness, okay? And we have to differentiate them because there is a kind of like hierarchy communication here. And always remember that hierarchy, it's not, when we're talking about a hierarchy of reality, it is not a structure of domination. That's how us humans have understood hierarchy. We've seen hierarchy as let's say the bigger is the one that dominates the smaller. In reality, that's not how it works. A hierarchy in reality is an order of communication, and it's an order of relationship. So just always remember, when I say hierarchy, I'm talking about the reality's conception of hierarchy. Meaning, we can't have an individual human without Earth. There's a hierarchy of relationship there. You see? Good. So what is the main characteristic that this legitimate or the structures of space-time are going to have? The main characteristic is that it has because now I have to think of the translation here. It has a self-centric movement around itself in space. It has a geocentric, in the case of Earth, but it has a geocentric rotation around itself within space. Okay, so it has its own place within empty, let's say empty space. But let's take each of us here. Now we have to locate which angle of participation do we have within reality. So when somebody says in the street, what's your name? And you say, okay, I'm so-and-so. And you're referring to an I, so that means a center point of experience, a center point of an angle from where you're participating within life. That angle that you call I, is it a planet? Does it have the conditions of a planet? Meaning, if you turn around yourself, first of all, can you turn around yourself sustained in space? I don't think we have that, yeah? I don't think we have that condition of that level of consciousness. We don't have that global integrity. So if I turn around myself, a day doesn't go by, okay? So space-time structures is talking about the order, remember I said the order and the relationship there is between these celestial bodies. Now, specifically, let's connect, let's place ourselves in the box of the legitimate family we belong to. Of course, there are boxes within boxes, but let's kind of like narrow it in the family, in the space-time structure of family we are directly in contact with, which is our solar system, okay? Our solar system. And this is going to be very important, and you'll see the importance when we talk about calendars, okay? Now, the solar system, if you see it, it has a structure of space. First of all, it has a structure of space, meaning it has an order of relationship. We can't just put the sun where where a planet is, I'll say, okay, I'm going to put Earth next to Urano. I'm going to say it in Spanish because I don't know the name in English. I'm going to put it on the other side of the asteroid belt. Okay, no. There is a structure there that it has a place. It has a hierarchy order. It has an order in itself, a spatial order, and okay. So, but it's not how us humans order ourselves, Uranus. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds. That's why I said I'm not gonna say it in English because I think it sounds a bit strange. So the order that space-time structures have is in a different category than the way that we order ourselves as, let's say, as humans. Okay. Now, which order should we communicate? Or at least establish a communication. Yeah, I'm leaving some questions open here. Yeah. Okay, so well, first of all, we have talked about this order. Yeah, there's a sun, there is a star that is emanating. That means a solar consciousness, and then there are planets that are receiving, which is more a planet consciousness. And between now, that is space structure, but what is time in this? It's the way these communicate or relate with each other. So we call that time, you know, the movements the Earth has in relation with the sun and with the other members of this family. So that is a space-time structure. Another thing about this is that these celestial bodies, this family, the solar system family, we are going to call it a structure also because it's receiving. What does a structure do? Structure and a content. What does a structure do? It is something that is containing contents. So now we have to talk about the other range, and this is the range that we are directly participating in. Like when an Earth says I, it is referring to a self-centering rotation in space kind of category of consciousness. You see, Earth can do that because it has that category. Now, when we say I, we're talking about contents within a planet, aren't we? Now, this, because I said it many times, but it's very important. We, in this experience within the reality of the universe, each center of experience has to recognize its position. It's a category of position. And clearly, we that are speaking with each other, we are definitely not planets, okay? Now, here's where this element comes. We are particular consciousness. We're not global consciousness. We are particular consciousness. And we could say that this particular consciousness, this reference of experience, from where I am relating with the world, this awareness that is experiencing, that is reflecting, that is learning, has more a category of a soul. Okay. Now, the soul is this kind of traveler consciousness, we could call it. You see, now the Earth, of course, has a soul, but it has a different category of a soul. It has, I call it a root consciousness. Why? Because it has a very stable, long-living process. we are more a traveler consciousness. We could say we are more time consciousness, meaning we need a space to be able to project our consciousness into. Now, what is for us as traveler consciousness, what is going to give us that space? A structure. And in the universe as we know it, what are those structures of space that can receive these souls? Planets and stars. Now, so what does the Earth provide? It provides a space, it provides its materials in order to have a vehicle, a physical vehicle for this traveler consciousness, this time consciousness, time in the way that it's kind of like it's a consciousness that can still operate without a specific space. Yeah. So now the thing is that what it's requiring enable to have let's say a physiological experience is something that has a root soul, something which has a structure hierarchy. So this is what we also call the agreement. I call it the Pacto 30, which the 30 agreement, or the 30 pact. I'm not sure if pact is the right word, but which is this 3 is the position that Earth has. Okay, 3 is the position that Earth has within this position of the family. You see how the way that they say that the order in which you were born kind of establishes and conditions the way that you were brought up. Like if you're the firstborn or the secondborn or the thirdborn. Well, the planet's position is very much important in the way that it's going to operate within this family. Yeah. So we are in this 3rd position from the sun. Now 0, we give that category to the sun. Yeah. Because it's a 0 that emanates potentials. Yeah, so it's very different, a star consciousness to a planet consciousness within this space-time structure hierarchy. Yeah. Now, and so there's agreements of the Earth and the Sun, but also we can say there's agreements between 3 points. So there's agreements of one character, which is the sun, another character, which is the earth, and the 3rd character, which is the soul, this traveler consciousness. And this agreement in 0 means there's like this agreement occurs in timeless, okay, and that establishes the conditions enabled to have this genetic projections. Now I'm putting into that other level there, yeah, a genetic projection. So what is the genetic projection? It's the possibility of this traveler soul to have a space of a structure and to have its own space. That's what we call a body. What is a body? It's a part of the planet. It's a part of the planet, but it is provided to a specific soul consciousness. You see, that's why it's my body. It's not your body. Okay, so there's like a kind of it provides a unit of self-expression, a unit of self-expression, but the body rarely belongs to the earth. That's why, you know, when we die, the materials of the body stays on the earth, and then that traveler consciousness, it's going to establish new agreements, depending on each case. Yeah. So Now, the genetic projection is very important because it is the vehicle through which that agreement can come into place within a physical existence, yeah, which the traveler consciousness doesn't have in itself. Okay, and that's of course the agreement. Now, what is the calendars? What is the calendars? But okay, the calendars is because the range of consciousness between a planet and a particular consciousness, meaning a soul that is projected into has a genetic projection, the difference of the range of consciousness is so huge, there has to be some mechanism of communication, a way that they can understand each other. Because it's like, how can I say? You know, we can't even begin to imagine the level or the how can we say, the complexity of consciousness that a planet has. Like, it's just beyond our imagination. Like, it's let's put it like in an analogy. It's like telling an ant about Einstein field equations. It's like that's how the distance is. Just imagine a planet has to regulate, has to coordinate a whole bunch of particular consciousness, a whole bunch of genetic projections in relationship with other, because of course the Earth, okay, yes, it's in communication within itself, but it's also in communication with others, meaning with other planets and the sun and the and the level of complexity to be able to create its own electromagnetic field and okay, so it's just a whole different level. Okay, so we can't even begin to imagine it, but that's not the important thing for us to imagine how that consciousness is. The key thing is, the question is there a way for us to establish a communication, a conscious communication between these two very a bridge of communication between these two ranges of consciousness that are so vastly different, yeah? So, and yes, a calendar. Now, a calendar is, we probably have taken the calendar in a very light perspective of a calendar is just the way that we organize the cycles of time. And I'm not sure and able to do better, how can you say, you know, growing plants better, following those cycles, and just knowing when the spring is coming, and you know, so just to organize our daily activity. Now, okay, one point, of course, that's how it is, you know, the way that, you know, I said on the 16th of August we're going to meet and blah blah blah, and this time this, okay, yes, it's a way of organization, but in its deep sense, it's a bridge of communication between these two ranges of consciousness, a global legitimate conscious and the little particular conscious, the soul consciousness, especially with the human expression. Now, we're going to see this very clearly, that, and it's becoming more and more clearly, that a date is not just a date. Okay, it's not just a date, is let's say it's a frequency, and it's a frequency that belongs to the structure and is communicated to the content, to the particular consciousness that is inhabiting it. Yeah. So we have to differentiate. One thing is in a habitat. Is that the word? A habitat. And one thing is that which is inhabiting it. You know. Or one thing is an environment, and one thing is the what is participating within that environment. Yeah. Now, the environment, the structure, reality is in communication with its elements, with these contents that are in it. Yes. Each of the different particular consciousnesses, or let's say there we can talk about the different species, the different collectives, are going to have means of communication. Yeah? The human has a type of communication which is to have a aware participation in the process. That's where the calendars come in, are going to be so important. Now, when we talk about calendars, this is the key point. Why is it so important for us to place our reference within the box of this family that we are linking with, and not to focus. Okay, it's always good to take into consideration the other boxes, like the galactic box. Of course, it's important. But a question: do we use the galaxy in order to establish our calendars? We don't use the galactic center. We use the relationships within the members of our family, because we are still maturing this family. Only a mature family is going to be a resource for more a galactic. But we're maturing. It's like we have to kind of concentrate on the points of participation that we are in. Understanding that there's other levels, there's other boxes that are all communicating together, of course. But it's like, okay, yeah, but when my daughter is learning mathematics, I can say in a way, okay, but my daughter belongs to the human race, to the earth, and yes, but at that specific point, she wants to learn about mathematics. I have to focus on that participation. Can you see that? Well, the same is with where we have to focus if we go to galactic, it's like, how can I say? It's like we are not really concentrating on the important, my daughter wants to learn mathematics, At this point, my daughter wants to learn mathematics. So I have to be focused on that range, understanding that it's interconnected at many other levels, but I have to be focused there. I have to take my responsibility at my reach, I have to be responsible within that reach. What's beyond my reach, I have to, in a way, derivate. I can't be responsible of that because it's beyond my reach. So I have to understand that reality takes care of those levels until my reach expands and I can begin to take responsibility in that. Yeah. Good. So a calendar is coordinating, because what is a calendar? What is a calendar? It's a relation. It's a way that these legitimates are relating between each other. These celestial bodies are relating between each other. It's so the cycles of a calendar is based on on these legitimate consciousness. It's not based on, I'm not sure, something human. No, it's based on these observations of these celestial bodies. Specifically, mainly, we can divide them into two, which is the solar calendar and the moon calendar, the lunar calendar. Those are the two main calendars we have, or references of calendars. Yeah. Another thing important, it's not about there's a calendar that's better than another. Each calendar is just different points of communication, with this, like each soul is going to have a means of communication with the same structure. So, but it can vary according to the calendar. So there's no such thing here as a kind of fight between which calendar goes. All is that belief system translation of religion thing going on, but that's not, in reality, that's not how it is. It's just different ways of establishing a communication. Yeah. Because why is it interesting for there to be a communication between the structure and its contents, between space-time structures, this reality, our solar system family? Why is it important to, and in communication with us as contents? Because now we have to ask a question. In this agreement, in this pact, there is between, the sun, let's take our planets because it's our reference point, the Earth, and the traveler consciousness, which is receiving a space to be able to project itself. Now, what is the agreement there? Now, this is where the change of calendars between the Julian and the Gregorian is going to be significant and important, because the way that we have seen it is kind of like the planet. It's a playground for the souls. It's a playground for the souls to learn. Now, that is not very fair to see it that way. We come here, we play, we learn, and I think there has to be a give and take here. There has to be, or more than a give and take, a give and give. Meaning, no, this is not just a playground for traveler souls to come and have a cruise and a vacation. This is for the Earth ones to learn. The sun, the solar system wants to learn. So what are, the question now, let's invert it. Why is the Earth wanting to receive these souls? What do you mean by a soul? A soul in Spanish is called the alma, an alma. Do you remember the ma? The ma was the ma was like the question or an idea of consciousness. The ma, do you remember that? And al, the word in Spanish of reach is alcance. Alcance. Okay, so it's the reach of a question. If a soul is a reach of a question, it means it has a limitation. Why does a soul have a limitation? Because it's a specific angle through where nothingness or spirit consciousness, it's a specific angle of interpretation that it can look at itself. Okay, so what does a soul bring? A new angle of interpretation. Now, what does the Earth bring? It brings, look, I like to put this analogy, We have Earth, in order for a seed to grow, you need a land, yeah? So you have a land, which is the base structure for that seed. Now, what are the souls? The seed is, let's say, it's what solar consciousness is emitting. The emission of the sun is it's emitting seeds of consciousness. Seeds. And Earth is like a land to receive that. Now, what is the soul? What does the soul provide in this analogy that I'm using? You see that the land, the more nutrients, the more diversity of nutrients it has, it tends to be a better land. That's why the whole thing of just growing one type of crop, you call it, one type of crop on one land, it tends to, it doesn't enrich it. So you need a diversity of nutrients. Okay, so what is the soul? Or these different souls coming in, these different reaches of interpretation of nothingness, these traveler consciousness, what does it provide for the? It provides an enrichment of its ground. You see, it's like because once it's an enrichment of its ground. So if it's enriched and it's receiving that solar consciousness, it can receive it and nurture it with more enrichment. So it's not something, it's not like it, and of course, what does the soul do? It learns and it experiences and it learns and it takes that learning with itself. Because the Spanish word alma and store, when you have a storage of information, you call it an almacenamiento. So what is like a soul is, on one side, it's a reach of a question or a reach of an ocurrencia, an idea. So yeah, a reach of an interpretation of spirit. And that's, that's what a kind of soul has. You can also see it as, because the range of the soul is like the 4, 5, 6. It's like design 4 and truth is 56. So what is a soul? It's a design of truth. It has a design of truth. That's why each soul is very much unique, because it each has a design of truth. Okay? And that design of truth enriches the ground of the planetary consciousness to be able to receive and emerge the seeds of consciousness that the sun is providing. Yeah, and at the end, the Earth is trying to evolve, and because the whole family is doing that. You see, they all basically it's a planet. It's just an unfoldment of the sun. Yeah. So now this conception that the planet is just this receiving thing, that's not a good idea to do it that way. So we have a commitment, because the commitment is when let's say the soul finishes the soul finishes its journey, it has to leave its learning. Because you see, let's say when someone dies, okay, there's two things that are going to occur. The material aspect, the water, the iron, everything, it stays in with Earth. Now, when we are learning, our soul is learning, but our body is learning too. We are leaving that learning process not only for us to take it, but for Earth to store it also. So Earth is storing all this learning in its territory. It is storing it in the physical elements that are always going to be part of the Earth. And the soul also is learning and taking that and storing it for spirit at a more, let's say, a level of consciousness. Yeah. So this is the important thing we have a commitment, not only come here, let's play around, let's have fun, and let's learn and let's leave. No. This is a responsibility and a commitment to this planet. I personally, I've made an agreement with myself, and I'm committed to the territory of Earth. Meaning, I'm, how can I say, I'm like committed with the territory. You see, so it's not just this is a big commitment. This is a big commitment. Probably I have this this commitment has reached a point where I've been able to do it within my David brain. I've established that commitment, and it's it's a profound commitment, because I'm committed with the process of this planet. So a lot of things that probably a soul tends to do, which is like this go home thing to the more gas consciousness, more this free soul consciousness. What I'm kind of saying is that no, I'm here. I'm committed with the territory. I'm committed with this global consciousness within this body, within this system, solar system. Like that for somebody could be how can I say, a big restriction. Now, another thing we have to ask is that why does the soul want to embody a genetic projection? Because it learned from it. So this whole thing of ascending, you see, there's certain things in spirituality that I think we should be careful of how it introduces in our brain. This is descending. The learning process is not in our source nature. The learning process is in this restrictive physical form. Because if not, we wouldn't have done it. So how is it that if the soul knows everything, why does it embody? Because it doesn't know everything. It learns from this experience. So, but it has to be committed with the mother that is receiving it. It's not just like, okay, you receive me, thanks for giving me a body, and now I can play around and learn and da-da-da. Kind of like, no. Well, now this commitment, it depends on each soul. Like, this is a free commitment. This is something that nobody put a gun to my head. Each person establishes its own agreement, and the soul has complete freedom to stay and go. And that's not something bad. But what I do think we have to stop accepting is that this is not a playground. Let's stop seeing this as a playground. I don't think that's acceptable anymore. It's not a playground. It's not something that we come, we use, and we leave. No. Okay, this is a very committed awareness, and we are here to nurture it. And we're going to learn from it as traveler consciousness. We're going to learn from it, but we have to also be committed in its own evolutionary process. For it can't be just come here and like a parasite point of view. Like just use, enjoy, and leave kind of thing. Yeah, and although this is probably innocent in the way that it's said, I don't think it's because it's just very immature to focus it on that way. You see, but if it's an agreement of an interaction of in this interrelationship that is occurring, everything is learning, everything is growing together in a commitment, and not so a commitment which is not something that is trying to it's not, because this is the thing, the soul, the particular consciousness can be very much it's an identity. It's an identity, and that identity can use this mechanism of how can I say, like ego, like being selfish, doing things for itself. Well, this is kind of like, first of all, it has to recognize that it's a design of truth that has a reach, but it's connected to nothingness. So it's still a servant in a way. It's still a resource of nothingness. and we are a resource for the earth. And okay, yeah, in a way, there's a two direction. It's a win-win. That's how it should be. But for it to be a win-win, there has to be a commitment with the global consciousness, not just I'm here, to come here, have fun, play soulmate games, and leave, and just put it in my own library. Yeah, like the soul, we could also see it as, when you go into a library and it has sections. You see, it has sections, and then each section is receiving books. You see, and that book is increasing the knowledge, we could say, of that section. Well, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. But all the books is the knowledge of the whole library. So at the end, the soul's journey and storage, almacenamiento, storage of knowledge, because at the end what it mainly stores is knowledge. For example, the whole thing of past life, what happened to you. A mature soul it doesn't care about the events. That is childish. That is very childish. It's what is the maturity, the nourishment, and a lot of people, I think, I guess the first thing is that they recognizing that, I can understand at the same time that they still trying to recognize that a different area of themselves. So, but to stay on, I was whatever in whatever period, and that is your interest, is the storage is not of events. The storage is of wisdom, of understanding, of knowledge, we could say. And we are a book within a section of this big library that we could call the expressed universe, which is just the manifestation of nothingness. You see? Okay, so I think I've actually took a bit very long for this. So okay, guys, can you see these levels? Yeah, I'm gonna put it back. These different areas here: space-time structures, calendars, souls, genetic projections. Biological unconscious. Now, biological unconscious, we tend to think it's just the unconscious that is kind of coordinating for my body to work, for the blood to circulate, for the heart to, and all that. Now, that is a very narrow way of seeing the biological unconscious. So I'm going to give a notion of the biological unconscious, which is a lot broader. It's a lot broader. So what is the biological unconscious? Yeah. Well, first of all, it's what is coordinating, articulating, interconnecting space-time structures, souls, genetic projections, and calendars. So it's coordinating a lot of stuff, and it's coordinating a lot of areas simultaneously. One of them is for my body to work well. Okay. And now, what is the biological conscious aspect? What is it is that point or that angle from where our particular consciousness, or soul, is aware of. It's its reach. So it's very little. It's very, very little. So it's the biological conscious is that area of reach. What we could say, you go into the dark, okay, and you're traveling through fields, but you got a light, and you're looking with the light. Okay, well, we could say that is the biological conscious, and the unconscious is all the what is dark for the soul. You see, the soul has an angle of that it can of captation of reality, and that is kind of its luminous. It's the light it can see, yeah. And the rest is just dark, but not because it's dark. It's just because its angle of reception can't receive it. So this is another thing, you know, like the particular consciousness, or this angle. Let's put it this word. I can't angle of captation of the soul. In order to increase, what does it have to do? It has to connect with that which it considers dark. So if the soul is in this paradigm of light against darkness, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? It considers good everything that's within its reach, and bad everything that's beyond its reach. That is an immature soul. Because that which is beyond its reach, it's that which is going to increase its angle. But if it's seeing, okay, this is good and this is bad, light and dark, you know, as kind of enemies against each other, what is that? It closes its own process of increasing its luminous captation. Can you see that? So, okay, so the biological conscious is just that what is in the reach of that particular conscious within a genetic projection. That reach is very, very small, okay? It's not like we can coordinate planets, suns, with all the other souls, okay? So it's very small, but if it's small, it does not mean that it's less important. And most important of all, it doesn't mean it lacks responsibility within that reach. Okay? Because sometimes we, you know, I've seen this this image. It says, it puts an image of the scales of the universe, okay? And then in one little point, this is you and your problem, yeah? Like, I don't like that. Why? Because it's like, okay, your problem is not important. I don't like that, because it's like, no, wait. Your problem is exactly what's in your reach, and that's your responsibility. So if you're comparing yourself and you're saying, okay, I'm very, very small here, and that means my problem is not something that I have to focus on, you're not taking responsibility of your experience. It's like, you see what I mean? Look, another way of seeing it is like, you know, each cell in my body is very, very, like, in comparison to the rest of the body, it's very, very small, its reach. But just imagine, because of that, it says, okay, well, it's not that important, is it? Meaning it doesn't fulfill its responsibility, it doesn't fulfill its function, its purpose. So even though our reach is very small, this does not cancel the responsibility we have within that reach. And if we don't take responsibility that we have within that reach, we are not in a process of nutrition for ourselves and for the rest. Like, this is kind of like, okay, the state will take care of it, kind of thing. Okay, the state will take care of it. You know, what can I do? I'm just a little me. No. You have your own specific responsibility, and and whenever we do that, you know, the state will take care of it. The structure will take care of everything. Which in the case of the states, I think it's absolutely corrupted to this point. So I wouldn't put it as an analogy of a structure. But let's take a structure, the structure of the Earth. Of course, yes, it's going to take care of your limit. You know, that's what's beyond. Of course, it's going to do, you know, it's going to contain you. Yeah, that is true. But whatever is in your reach, you have to take responsibility of that. That's your awareness, attention is there. That's where your nutrients contribution comes. that's your participation, small as it is in comparison, but important as it is in your journey. So, you know, that's also, you know, that's why it's so important to distinguish my reach and my limit. Also, why is it important? Because what happens with people that want to be responsible, they tend to confuse and they want to become responsible of things that are beyond their reach. And what happens to them? They get stressed out, they get burnt out, because really they are trying to take responsibility of an area in which they don't have the reach. So they, you know, it's like they get burnt out. They don't, responsibility is not something heavy, eh? Really, it's not something heavy. When I'm saying responsibility, it's not a moral heavy thing. It's your participation of learning. It's something very much enthusiastic, I feel. Responsibility. It's not, you know, a heavy thing that you have to do. It's some, okay, this is where my reach is. That means this is where I'm consciously participating. I know that the biological unconscious is coordinating a lot of things for this to happen, but I'm focused here because this is my contribution. So let's go, let's make the errors, because those errors are the learning, and let's do the feedback to the structure. Yeah. Okay. I really took a long time to explain all this, but how are you guys? Is it kind of clear, more or less, this differentiation, this first differentiation of these terms, these notions? Excellent. And to recognize these areas within our recognizing these areas within ourselves are very important, yeah. Because it knows where we are positioned, where we are, and so on and so forth. Kind of like at the beginning of this development, the whole aspect of the traveler consciousness soul, I'm talking about my own process, but in general, was very much kind of like kept to the side. Kind of like I don't want to talk with you right now. Why was that? Because it was going to, because it has its own identity, it can produce disturbance. So at one point, it was very important just to establish in the genetic projection and its cooperation with this global, with reality. You know, like kind of like 7-1, 7-1, 7-1, 4. Just put in 0 points. Stop screwing about. Just 7-1, 7-1. Now what I feel is that because there's been a maturing there, because in the middle of the 7-1, 4 was learning, was maturing. Yeah? I kind of feel, at least in my process, and talking with other people, it's also happened to them, that we can begin to again acknowledge its place in this puzzle. Acknowledge its place in this puzzle, because it's going to cooperate, you know, in this communication between 7 and 1, and it's going to do this 84, which the sum of 84. So to do 8 is the, you know, the interdimensional communication, but through 4. So it has its place, you know, acknowledgement of its place, of its area, of its area of exploration, and at least for me, it was also nice to welcome it again, kind of thing, you know. But now within this understanding that this is not a playground, it's not for a self-service of this own identity soul. it's something which is in for the growth of the structure of reality for itself, of course. And there was something also, because at the end you want to integrate all the areas that we are part of, but there's sometimes that we have to kind of leave something aside for a moment because it's gonna disturb, so it's been nice to welcome the soul aspect to the whole picture. The soul is kind of like, it's look, let me put an example. You see, because what tends to happen, just imagine we have two brothers, and what tends to happen, what we look in those people at the beginning, we're always looking for the features, genetic features of the mother and the father, like, he has got blue eyes like the mother, and he has got big ears like the father, and then we go into personality characteristics, like, he's kind-hearted like the mother, and he's kind. But there's something there that you can't really explain it with genetic information or a mother and father thing. There's something unique, and that's why they say the eyes are the window to the soul. Like, there's something behind those eyes that it has something specific. How can I say? It has something unique. It's like this thing of seeing a child, and behind the eyes you see something very like mature, and it's like, Jesus Christ, your body is 7 years old. How can I see such maturity behind those eyes? Well, okay, it's like, it's this traveler consciousness, it's what it's projecting within that genetic pool. It's projecting its own self-expression. That's the thing of the soul. Self-expression is very important of the soul. That's why they say, he touches with his soul. It's like its own self-expression. That self-expression, you can't explain it with genetic stuff, Like, for example, my brother and I, we look alike. We have personality features, but there's something that we are completely different. Completely different. Why? Because there's a file there that it's got that. So more than a translation, really the soul allows to a different interpretation. Translation is more legitimate aspect. Like, I see the body as a good translator, the earth as a good translator, the sun is a good translator. Maybe the soul in its 0 points is a good translator, but really what it provides is an angle of interpretation. You see? That's what you see. Like, my way, I've got the same eyes as my brother, whatever, but my angle of interpretation that I'm bringing and the angle of interpretation that my brother's bringing, the reach of that question that each of us are bringing is completely different. One is not good and one is not bad. Both of them are nutrients for the earth. Or what can help the communication when it doesn't interfere. Basically, when it's not self-serving itself, when it's not taking a planet as a playground, when it's not taking, when it's not self-serving, when it understands that at the end it's increasing the library, not just its own book. That's when it interferes, when it's like, oh, this is just for me to have a bigger book. No, your book is collaborating within a section, that's the soulmates kind of thing, like science fiction. So the souls that are more like in the angle of science fiction. This is just analogy, yeah. But each of them has their own book. But what is the contribution of the soul? it's for the library to have a wider interpretation, for spirit, for nothingness. You see? Okay. Okay, guys. Let's go on for a break. Okay. And I think I'm gonna ask you guys. Just let me stop. In recording, good. So if you guys are kind of well with this first part, these first notions, as I say, these notions are just to kind of give a minimum differentiation and a minimum notion of them. But again, you know how this is. You know, that same notion evolves a lot in this process. Yeah. But I did think it is important to begin to and see the importance of the calendar. You know, the calendar is this mechanism of communication between the space-time structures or this reality of the solar system, this environment, and its inhabitants. You know, so let's kind of